So what you need is you need a partner. I love the story of partners, story of shared vision. It goes back to Andrew Carnegie, who was one of the great philanthropists of the turn of the last century. And the story goes that every year the Carnegies would pay the deficit for the New York Philharmonic. So one day the secretary comes up to Mr. Carnegie and says, Mr. Carnegie, our deficit this year is, I think, $60,000, a fortune in money in the early 1900s. And would you do what you've always done and cover the deficit? And Mr. Carnegie says, absolutely no problem. He's about to go write a check, takes a pen right, and he stops and he says, you know, Mr. Secretary, here's what I want to do, something different this year. I want you to raise half the money, and if you can raise half the money, I'll write that check for the other half. Secretary comes back the very next day. He says, Mr. Carnegie, we raised the other $30,000. Will you write your check? Carnegie goes to write the check, and he says, and by the way, Mr. Secretary, where'd you get the other $30,000 from? And the secretary says, from Mrs. Carnegie. I tell you that story because I want you to remember the concept of shared vision. That's what you need. And shared vision, by the way, with business working hand in hand with government. Without shared vision, private sector work with government, we wouldn't have the internet. Without shared vision, we wouldn't have pilotless drones that are saving the lives of American soldiers in Afghanistan and in Iraq. If not for shared visions, we wouldn't have new technologies for new vaccines, new technologies to treat illness, systems to protect our country, or even get to energy independence. Private side's not going to do it alone. The government's not going to do it alone. So you're in an area where it's required to have shared vision, and the reality there is. And so then the opportunity is for folks here to say, how do we tap into that? Now, there are a lot of great companies out there in the other 49 states. They're out there. I would say that your challenge isn't to beat the competition. Your challenge is to make your idea, your solution, compelling to policymakers and their staff. Not about beating competition. It's about making sure you've got a partner, you've got a shared vision, and to make your idea or your vision. And that's, by the way, where Weda can be helpful in articulating that and being. And part of it is just kind of having somebody kind of bring the energy together. Somebody to tap into. There may be a small business guy that I have an idea, but how do you tap into working with the federal government? How do you do that? The reality is that it can be hard and it can be complex, and there are bureaucracies, and so you have an opportunity, and at times you need somebody to kind of it's the whole being greater than the sum of the parts. That's what Weda really offers. The whole being greater than the sum of the parts, in an area that is so rich in innovation, so rich in human talent, that if you can pull that together, you create great opportunity. Let me share with you just a few addresses. 58 Bagley Avenue, Detroit, Michigan. 4406 Kingsville Avenue, Los Angeles, California. 45 Eastview Avenue, Pleasantville, New York. 2066 Chris Drive, Los Altos, California. 1443 North Lake Way, Seattle, Washington. My interest is not in those addresses, but in the garages on those properties. It was a coal shed in Bagley Avenue in Detroit that was the world's first garage, because that's where Henry Ford created the automobile as we know it, and ultimately in mass production. And on Kingsville Avenue in L.A., a guy used an old box of 4 scraps of lumber to build a camera stand in his uncle's garage and do stick figure cartoons, and his name was Walt Disney. In a garage in the mansion of New York, a 35-year-old son of the president of our own McAllister College lived. By the way, the kid got kicked out of college. He became a drifter, came home and started a little magazine he decided to call Reader's Digest. And over 2066 Chris, the 12-year-old, had the audacity to ask the president of Hewlett-Packard Corporation for some free electronic parts. Bill Hewlett began a garage himself in 1938. Stephen Jobs got his parts, and he and Stephen Wozniak invented the world's first personal computer. And I can tell you, literally, Medtronic Corporation in Minnesota was started in a garage in Minneapolis. And Ford Motors, Disney's, Reader's Digest, Apple, they didn't start at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And I think that's the point. And at 1443 North Lake Way, Seattle, is a small nondescript building. And CEO Christina Labasny and a team each and every day are finding new ways to grow steel, create new coatings that will not only protect war fighters who protect our nation, but find new ways to strengthen our economy through cutting-edge materials technology. That's the opportunity. That's the opportunity. But it's tough to do it alone. And that's what this is about. And that's the opportunity that you have. Just briefly touch upon the economy, because these are, as I said, challenging times. But I really am optimistic. I was talking to folks and trying to get a sense of where we're at, and there are those folks think that there's a false floor here and there's another drop. But the best sense I get right now is that we're on a path to a kind of a steady movement forward. There can be some slips, but we've been through a lot. And it's not to say that there's sunshine on the horizon quickly, but it's there. And I think what it takes is, and this is my fear, that in these tough times that somehow you can't allow it to crush the entrepreneurial spirit. You can't allow it to totally kind of sap away that willingness that folks in this room and others have to take some risk and to be creative. Because in the end, we need future Apples and Fords and others, and it's only going to come about by the folks that are in this room and others who continue to take risk. And by working with Weda, maybe provide a little more security. The bottom line is that we need more entrepreneurs, not less. I would say, by the way, that we need more small business. I worry about regulation and taxes and what's happening with trade. I mean, there's some issues on the horizon that we are infected by the environment. But it's got to be one ultimately. America's, and I believe in America's greatest nation in the world, in part because we have always lifted up the entrepreneurial spirit. And that's what we need to do. And so in these times, it's if I could just leave you with a sense of the spirit that you need, it's about, being possibilitarians, being positive in spite of the challenges. And I really think it's really important. I really do. I think you got to wake up every day and say, something, I live in this great nation and I have great opportunity. I'm involved in an area that I know is an area of potential growth, that energy and defense are there, that I'm surrounded in a community that can kind of bring together and create a critical mass that probably can't be matched anywhere else, perhaps anywhere else in this country. And so how do you seize the opportunity? Weda can be part of that. It can be helpful. And I think it could make a difference to sustaining you. We have seen the difference in Minnesota, as I said, a place not known for its defense industry. But we've seen growth and we've seen opportunity. Let me leave you with the words of another Norman, Vincent Peale, who once said, become a possibilitarian. He said, no matter how dark things seem, or may actually be, he said, always lift your sights and look to the possibilities because they're always, always there. I think that's true now more than ever. It really is. And so I'm pleased to be here. At a time of challenge, but a time of opportunity, in a room, I think, filled with possibilitarians, because you wouldn't be here yourself. So if you keep that spirit and keep moving forward, I can assure you, I firmly believe that better days lie ahead. Thank you, and God bless.